You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I am your host, Lucky Robert Curtis. With me is Mitchell Stuckey. Stuckey and Lucky. Say hello, Mitchell.
Hello, guys.
There are a lot of different things we could use to describe UFC 157. Ladies' night, girls just want to have fun. The nipple that almost slipped.
I was sure that it did.
I honestly... I mean, my wife was there, so I couldn't, like, frame by frame replay it, but I was positive it did too. And if so, I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but Ronda Rousey probably has very light pink nipples. I'm just saying. If they did slip, that's what they look like. Otherwise, I have no idea. But today, on this show, part one, we're only going to talk about the prelims. Facebook and FX. In part two, we'll cover the main card. But that, my friends, is no deterrent for listening to this show, because the fight of the year so far for 2013 was a prelim. Man, oh man, that was a good fight. And
fantastic.
That was in FX. On Facebook, we had a couple of good fights as well, and we also had a stinker. Anything you want to say before we get going?
I'm excited to talk about the main card, but you are correct about the fight of the night. And there were some other fights that didn't really go. A lot of the fights didn't actually go the way that I thought they would go.
You're talking about Brendan Schaub, aren't you?
Well, that on the we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. But man, that was disappointing.
Yep. Very disappointing.
Why, LeVar? Why do you do this to us, LeVar?
LeVar wanted to scrap.
As we said in our pre-fight show, the Facebook undercard was the JV welterweight tournament. 3 welterweight fights. The first one was Yuri Vilif versus Nashon Burell. Both of these guys were making their UFC debuts. Nashon Burell won. A couple of things that stood out to me first, and let me ask you what you think about this. They said that Nashon should be proud and honored, and it probably gave him special extra incentive and preparation because in his camp he got striking and stand-up lessons from Bernard Hopkins, boxer. What do you think?
That's going to cost you, I guess, in MMA. You don't want to be just... I mean, sure, your boxing's got to be legit, but I think also being from Philly, Bernard Hopkins, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw there's a clip out there where Bernard Hopkins gives some striking tips to Rashad. And Rashad, I mean, at the time he was listening to these striking tips, he was probably the number 3 ranked light heavyweight in the world, politely listened. And for me, not a fighter, I'm like, oh, this is cool stuff. Just describing what, you're using your shoulder to tuck your chin and calling it like a shield, like your Roman shield, things like that. But here's the thing, is there's so little with boxing that translates into MMA that I don't know if it's actually worthwhile at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Why would you take tips from a boxer when a boxer doesn't have to punch in a certain way where he's also got to make sure he's not getting taken down or sell a feint so that he can throw a kick? A boxer doesn't have to worry about those types of things. So it'd be great in the boxing game, but this is not boxing.
Well, everything is different. Like, right. I don't want to get an email like he'd spend the time talking to us lowly dogs from Jack Slack. But the reason that boxing and MMA are so incompatible, yes, you throw the same sorts of punches, but your footwork is completely different, like you said, because you're worried about takedowns. You can't just stand straight up. You have to change the way you move because you're also looking for kicks and the way you defend. But also, boxers, if you watch them, they'll actually get really close and almost rest their head on the other guy's shoulder and then throw little inside punches. That's, quote-unquote, the pocket, fighting from the inside. And in MMA, that pocket lasts for about half a second, and then you have to get out because you're going to clinch, go into a Muay Thai thing, you're going to stall, go for takedowns, whatever. That standing super, super close and throwing uppercuts and hooks and things like that never happens in MMA.
No, not going to happen.
The other thing about Nashon is that he came in nearly 6 pounds over.
Yeah, we can call him Nashon instead of the Rock and Roller. We can just call him Rumble. Let's do that.
Yeah, Nashon the Rock and Rumbler, Burell. So the fight basically played out. Yuri was better on the ground. He was throwing leg kicks, and Nashon landed with the hands. Nahshon ended up with a unanimous decision, although I believe, and I think the judges scored this round 1 was for Yuri. The next fight, another welterweight fight. By the way, Nahshon ends up 9-2. Yuri Vilif 6-2. Next fight, John Manley versus Neil Magny.
Woo!
First, I want to say this. Neil Magny is the identical twin of Antonio Fargas, who is the actor that played the original Huggy Bear in Starsky and Hutch. Have you seen I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker? Have you seen I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker?
No, I have not.
Oh, your whiteness is so confirmed. Google it.
I've seen
Go look
Pootie
up
Tang.
Antonio Fargas. Pootie Tang?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, what you don't know, whatever. You're like well versed in the 1930s comedy, so I'm not worried
You're
about
right.
you. You're super
Actually,
old.
Huggy Bear is before my time. But I know from I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, the actor. Then I was like trying to go find what would be the most notable reference for him for the podcast. And hey, it's Huggy Bear, except not Snoop Doggy Dogg, the actual show. Google it. Go look up Huggy Bear. Actually tweeted at Neil Magny. Change your nickname to Huggy Bear. That's going to be another goal of this podcast.
Oh, I see. You are correct. I'm just
Yes.
Googled him. That is good.
Thank you. The ears, the nose, it's all there.
Oh, yeah.
And in I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker, Antonio Fargas was Pimp of the Year. And he actually walked out of jail from his old 1970s outfit when he was released 10 years later. And he has little aquariums in his high heel shoes. With fish swimming around in there. Big old pimp outfit. It was great. Manley is a one-dimensional fighter. All he did was try to grind for a takedown against the cage. That's all he did the entire fight. It didn't work. Maybe he got 1 takedown, maybe he got 2 takedown. Magny scored a little bit. Easily a unanimous decision for Neil Magny. He improves to 8-1. John Manley 7-2. I guarantee you Manley's going to get cut.
Yeah, there's just not much to say about that. And when you put in that kind of performance, especially when there's that many cuts before you, and Dana is threatening this many cuts, 100 cuts to come, why would you do that?
Yeah, John Manley, after the fight I tweeted out, congratulations Dana White, only 99 more decisions to make. That was terrible.
Here's the thing, though, while we're on the topic about Dana White. Have you ever noticed that when he talks about real big decisions or decisions like that, he doesn't say we, as in him and the Fertittas. He says I. Like, I've decided I'm going to cut 100 fighters. Or when I finally decided that women's MMA needed to come in, I went out and did all of it. Like, dude, what do you mean?
Yeah, or I cut John Fitch.
Yeah, you maybe said, okay, but what, doesn't he have like 9.5% of the company, and the rest is...
No, I think you're being unfair. He's doing that strategically, because he's saying, he said this in, I think, the pre-fight media scrum. He said, every bad decision that you guys don't like, I made it. It's my fault. Talk to me about it. Don't go to Joe Silva. Don't go to the Fertittas. Talk to me. I think he's trying to be the focal point for negativity.
But he's also taking credit for all the great points.
Well, can we say cutting John Fitch was a great point?
No, and while we're on the topic, if you're listening, look on What Culture this week for a great article as to why John Fitch was cut and why it wasn't that bad of a move from me.
Self-promotion. That's what we're all about on this show.
That and making fun of fighters' names.
Yes, and making fun of fighters' appearances as well. Next fight, welterweight, Kenny Robinson defeating Brock Jardine via a very unusual submission. I'm going to call it the hamstring slicer. What do you think?
That was fantastic to see. I don't know what you would call it, and a lot of people didn't know what to call it. Call
it a hamstring bar.
What I don't understand, two things about it. First of all, he said that he tried it on his friend in college, or an opponent, right, in college, and literally ripped the hamstring off the bone. Okay, that's a sick move. No one's ever seen it in MMA. Why are you going to get up on the microphone and tell everyone, yep, I do that, that's how you do it? Why wouldn't you go, I don't know, it was a freak thing, probably won't ever work again, and then just do it again?
You know the chances of him being in that same position where he's on He's on the back, he's sliding off, and he's got the guy's ankle just right there to grab. Probably like 1 in 1,000.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen...
I will say this. People on MMAshare.com, our friends, during every event, we have we live chat about what's going on the message boards. And someone said, actually a couple people said, that they thought that Brock Jardine, the love child of Lesnar and the Dean of Mean, tapped because he didn't stretch, because he wasn't flexible. That's silly talk.
Yeah, I don't know if that's even possible to be true.
What happened is Robertson had his hook in, and so Jardine's knee was pressed up against Robertson's shin, and that was the point, that was the fulcrum, that was the point of torque. And so when he grabbed the heel with both arms and pulled up, the leg was held steady by that shin, so that all he was doing was stretching that hamstring. Yeah. And he was stretching it beyond what a human leg should stretch.
Right, he was basically...
So that was not a... Go ahead.
He was basically making him do a split with just the one leg. That's not... He obviously is not going to be that flexible.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree, and I completely accept Kenny Robertson's version of the story that he ripped the guy's hamstring off. Mm-hmm. So no disrespect to Brock Jardine. I don't think it was a stretching issue. That's pretty condescending to think that an MMA guy, oh, he didn't stretch. Well, I'm pretty sure he's got that covered day one of training camp. Anyway, that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful submission. That's what I love about MMA. You never know what you're going to see. You never know. Speaking of you never know what you're going to see, let's talk about let's talk about the FX fight. I did not realize this until I was actually watching the fight, and I started saying, who is this Karos guy? Did a little bit more research. It turns out this guy's brother is Phoenix Jones, that superhero in Seattle. The guy that literally dresses up as a superhero and walks the streets.
No.
There's a YouTube. Yes, it is. That's his brother.
What?
I know that. I'm telling you. Karos' brother is Phoenix Jones. If you have never heard of Phoenix Jones, go to YouTube and Google Phoenix Jones. You'll actually see him get into a street fight with the cops there, because if someone challenges you in Seattle or Washington or Oregon, wherever he's at, you don't have to back down. You can fight. So the cop has to sit there and let them fight, and immediately Phoenix Jones unleashes a barrage of leg kicks and then decks the guy. And then all of the guy's friends get mad, saying after the first leg kick, their friend didn't want to fight anymore, and Phoenix Jones knocked him out regardless. Hey, whatever. You mess with Phoenix Jones, you're getting the boom. But that was Karos' brother. I didn't realize that.
No, and apparently Phoenix Jones was an 11-0 MMA fighter in unsanctioned amateur fights with a 4-0 professional record. What?
Not to take away from Sam Stout's victory, but I want to talk about Phoenix Jones some more. This guy got his start because he saw someone like stealing a car or robbing a purse or something, so he threw on a ski mask so he wouldn't be identified and ran over and stopped the crime. And since then, he's like, you know what? Some men are called to greater heights.
I think
with great power comes great responsibility. I am Phoenix Jones.
I think the more important part of that story is, why the fuck did he have a ski mask with him when he saw that happen? Was he going to go rob someplace and then thought, nah, this is better?
In Australia, they call a ski mask a balaclava.
Well, and that's Australia. They're upside down.
Like everyone kept saying, a man came into a store with a balaclava. I'm like, isn't that like a Persian dessert?
That's baklava's Greek.
Yeah, that was the joke. Sam Stout wins via split decision. Fodor, kind of an awkward style, stands straight up. I felt like he looked impressive a little bit in round 1. He slowed in round 2 and 3. I don't know.
So did you agree with the decision in Sam Stout?
Yeah, probably 2 rounds to 1. I don't really agree with a split decision though.
So you think the one judge saw it the wrong way?
Yeah, but maybe he was like, "That's Phoenix Jones' brother. He wins the fight."
Don't wanna throw the wrong decision down here. I thought Sam Stout did very well. The first round I didn't think was phenomenal for him, but with Hands of Stone as your nickname, and fighting a guy who is leaving his chin right there, you should be able to put one on him and take him down. What's interesting, though, for Sam Stout is he has, now with that last decision fight, just as many decisions as John Fitch had. He is tied for the record of decisions in the UFC with John Fitch.
You want to talk about a guy trending down, which is why how Dana justified cutting Fitch, because he was the number 1 contender, number 2, number 3, 7, 9, and so forth. Sam Stout should not have gotten to the old Sam Stout would never have gotten to a split decision with Karis Fodor.
No,
he's trending down. I expect to see him in Bellator by the end of 2013.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think he.
What's interesting about Sam Stout though is he's only 28, but I feel like he's been around for forever.
Yeah, and let him go to another organization, put together a 3 or 4 fight winning streak, and come back.
He did leave the UFC for a little bit, and did well, and he came right back. So I think that could happen. You could be right. I just want to see him fight Spencer Fisher every time he fights. I don't care that they fought 3 times. I don't care. I just want to see him fight.
Can I say this about Spencer Fisher? That guy's shady.
You think so?
On Twitter, I befriended him. I followed him, quote unquote. And I didn't expect to follow back, but then he said, "Thanks for the follow," and followed me back. I was like, "Oh wow, cool. Good on you, Spencer Fisher." And then 10 minutes later, he unfollowed me. Because you get the message saying you've been followed.
Uh-huh.
You don't get a message saying you've been unfollowed. So he's like, "Hey, follow." He'll get the email. Unfollow. I don't have to listen to this guy's shit. I'm like, "No, that's shady. What are you doing, Spencer?" And then I also asked him if he wanted to come on the show. He's like, "Yeah, let me check my schedule." That was a month ago.
That is crafty.
Shady. So I'm not following him either.
Well, now I know how to unfollow you. Whoa.
Yeah. This is awkward. But what wasn't awkward was our next fight. Featherweight, Dennis Bermudez versus Matt Grice. Now, Matt Grice is an Oklahoma kid. You would think Robert Curtis, Oklahoma kid, would love him. But no, Matt Grice wrestled for the Sooners.
Ooh.
Boo.
Oh.
This fight was this is the fight we were talking about.
Yeah.
This is a fight of the year candidate. As of right now, as of basically March, this is the fight of the year.
This fight brings up a couple interesting points for me, especially with the recent barrage of cuts that the UFC wants to make. First of all, in the first round, when Bermudez got clipped and just dropped.
That was beautiful.
That was
beautiful.
It was very beautiful. But there I am watching that go and talking to my wife, who actually took the time to sit down and watch the prelims with me. And I told her, I'm trying to explain the sport to her and explain that, yes, there is blood and some people get knocked out, but they're very safe. And they're very safe, and safety is first and foremost. And then this dude gets fully knocked out and gets
off of his feet.
Yep, fully knocked out. And the fight should have been stopped. They stopped the Koscheck fight, but the fight should have been stopped. And then he gets back up and fights the rest of the fight. And I'm sitting there screaming.
It gets better.
Yeah,
it's better.
Oh God, it was awesome. But I'm sitting there screaming, "Stop the fight! Stop the fight!" This guy is, he's gonna have brain damage after that. And he kept going. So why I think that's important is you're watching these two guys beat past the point of consciousness and continuing on while we're sitting there saying, we'd like to see that again and again and again, and we're going to cut people who don't want to fight like that. How do you feel internally about that? Yeah, that was extremely exciting, but do you want your war heroes to be brain dead by the time they're 25?
This is the game they play.
It is.
I'll say this. Let me tell you first my fight story, and then because I think the person that ended up with more damage was Grice.
Oh,
and that was in the third round.
Absolutely.
When I saw Matt Grice land, a left hook that put Bermudez airborne. This is why I can't watch fighting with my kids in the room. Because I had an out-of-body experience, and my soul left my physical body, and at the moment it did, my physical body goes, "Oh, shit!" And my wife's in the next room, my kids are there in the room playing, and I'm like, "Oh, Daddy did something really bad." I'm like bouncing in my chair like I'm getting shock therapy. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But to your point about brain damage, Matt Grice, had there not been a cage behind him, or had they been fighting in pride with a ring, he would have been knocked out. The cage kept him standing.
Yeah, he would have fallen through the ropes in pride. But
yeah, and that's where the brain injuries happen.
Is him being knocked out standing and still taking punishment?
Him taking punishment and being quote unquote dazed or concussed and then taking more.
Right, but what was so crazy about that is he was throwing haymakers back. Like if they would have landed flush, he would have won. I don't know. He was out on his feet and fighting back. It's just, you listen to Robbie Lawler at the post-fight press conference, and you hear how slow and difficult it is for him to put together words. And he's a young striker. I mean, he's not super young, but he's a striker as well who's taken damage like that, been in a number of wars like that. It just...
For better or for worse, this is combat sports. And you can't really say that this is a UFC problem, because Lawler left the UFC and he fought, and maybe he needs to change the way he trains in his gym. Like, I think that's one of the reasons Wanderlei Silva's chin is gone, because of all those wars in shoot box. And he also fought outside the UFC, where maybe he took more punishment than he should have. Who knows?
I'm not blaming it on the UFC, not at all. The point I'm saying is,
I think the UFC is the best in terms of safety, the best.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is, what are we really doing here when we're saying I don't want to see these?
We're cheering an awesome fight with blood. That's what we're cheering, Mitchell. Time to get a pair.
I just think it's interesting, but at the same time, I was the first one to boo the Brennan Schaub LeVar Johnson, and I'll be the first one to tell you I hate watching Michael Kiesa, who's known for that type of style. I hate watching him fight. So, which we can talk about now if you'd like.
Let's just touch on it. Dennis Bermudez won via split decision. They literally, the last 10 seconds of the fight, they are standing toe-to-toe in the ring, trading haymakers. Awesome.
Yeah, since you brought that up, what did a judge see to give Grice 2 rounds?
The second round, I think, could go either way.
Okay. I thought that's where Bermudez
I was happy
really
with the decision. Yeah, I was happy with the decision. I thought a split decision was fair for both fighters. And you kind of love it because both fighters realize that sometimes the performance of the fight is worth more than the result. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, they're both hugging and they're both congratulatory. Like it's almost like saying, like being on like a project team. Right. And like we built this together rather than I lost.
Right. I
won.
think as soon as the fight ended, I think one of them turned their back and threw their arms up, and the other guy was like, "No, we need to celebrate this together."
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was Bermudez that actually grabbed Grice's hand and held it up and pointed at him.
I don't remember which that. I do know though. To your point about we did this together. In the post fight, Grice said, "Sure, I won the fight of the night. That's great, but I'd give everything back just to get the win." So sure, they built it together, but that sucks for Grice.
Well, sure it does. But if you're going to lose,
that's the way to lose.
Grice just won himself a whole bunch more fans, not a doubt. And Dennis Bermudez too. God, that was a brutal fight. Bermudez 10-3 now. Grice is 15-5. Neither of those guys are going anywhere. Last fight of the prelims, lightweight Anton Kuivanen.
Not last fight of the prelims.
Versus. Let me look at my notes here. No, you're right. There's one more. Yeah, Brendan Schaub is next. That's not really a fight.
We don't need to talk about that even.
The last fight of the prelims, Anton Kuivanen, 17-6. And it was funny because after the fight of the year, I said, and now Michael Kiesa. But to be truthful, this was one of his better fights.
It was. It really was. And you know what? I give him crap for his grinded-out style, which is the cool way to say it. But he really does. I mean, he finishes fights. He's good at subbing you. I give him crap, but once he gets a choke, you're going out.
Yeah, once he gets you on the ground, he's fairly aggressive towards the finish. Now, he grinds to get those takedowns. Mm-hmm. Those are slow and hard to watch sometimes. Once he gets to the ground, he seems to be pretty active. I think it is solely because of his lumberjack/Greek hero beard.
You think? Well, that could really be the only plausible reason.
I want him to come into the ring in a toga.
He's also from Aurora, Colorado. That's interesting. I wonder if Pooh Smear knows him. Pooh Smear. That's a person I call by name.
And that's a man that was eligible for the Hall of Fame vote.
Just so we were clear on that.
Don't you want to be a part of MMAshare.com? Come join us. Be friends with Pooh Smear.
Pooh Smear. Who's from Colorado. Anyway, so Michael Kiesa...
And frequently hikes up to NORAD to spy upon the activities of our government, unmolested.
I appreciated Kiesa here, but is it just me, or does it really honestly look like he's never thrown a punch every time he throws a punch?
I mean, I love John Fitch, but when John Fitch lost to Maya and he started throwing those leg kicks in the third round out of desperation, they looked atrocious.
Yeah, like no training had ever happened.
Well, some guys maybe... I mean, I was thinking about this. Maybe when you wrestle and you develop that elite cardio, it's a different kind of cardio. It's not a sprinter's cardio. You know what I mean? Alistair Overeem has a sprinter's cardio. He's really, really good at throwing punches. But if you ask him to grind it out in isometric battles, he collapses. His little steroided heart just bursts and he falls to the ground. Michael Kiesa, Jacob Volkman, John Fitch, these guys are isometric masters. But when they have to do fast twitch muscle stuff, they look like a newborn fawn. Like they look like the beginning of Bambi. Like, did the young prince fall down? I'm a parent, I admit it. So I think when they get into striking battles, it doesn't matter how much training they do. They've conditioned their body to be isometric, not isotonic. You know, they're not fast twitch guys. No. And when they throw punches, it looks like they're like you're watching a replay on a really bad PlayStation 3 game.
Maybe PlayStation 1.
There you go. Kiesa pixelated his striking. But he did win via rear naked choke in round 2. I want to ask you one question before we go to the Brendan Schaub, LeVar Johnson hugfest. At the post-fight interview in the ring with Rogan, Kiesa said if he had a chance to win, it was going to be in round 1, but I knew in round 2 or 3 he was nothing. Do you like that when fighters say stuff like that? It kind of feels disrespectful.
Yeah, you know, there's a proper way to say it, I guess, is to say I know my conditioning was better, or I know conditioning is a weakness of his, so I knew that in the later rounds I could do this. But to say that I thought if I was going to stop it, it'd be in the first, like, that's just overbearingly confident. And when you're in a stacked lightweight class, as he is, he doesn't have room yet to run his mouth.
Well, it's sort of this collision of different cultural trends in the UFC. The UFC was dominated by martial artists. You know what I mean? Like Anderson Silva bowing to his opponents and George St. Pierre and that kind of stuff. But then you have an influx of the brash American athlete, guys like Josh Koscheck that talk shit, swagger. Mm. And I think that's some of the reason why people don't like guys like Rashad or Josh Koscheck, because they're the traditional martial artists and they want that honor and camaraderie that comes after you fight, and all of a sudden you're going to go out drinking with the guy because he's your buddy, because you shared a moment with him that your parents and your sister and your family and your wife don't understand because you're both warriors. Mm-hmm. And so when Kiesa says that, my martial arts part of me feels like, oh, I don't like that. That's not honorable. But then the trash-talking part of me is like, yeah, he won. He can say whatever he wants.
Tell him.
So
tell him, big guy.
I'm conflicted.
I'm not, you know, I got into watching MMA because of the camaraderie part and the respect. And what I would always say to people then that I was trying to introduce to the sport is they just beat the shit out of each other, and now they're buds. Or they're about to beat the shit out of each other, and they're high-fiving. Or, hey, look at Crow Cop hug Pat Barry. That's a sign of respect. Those things are great. I do not like the way that the UFC is moving towards the trash talk.
Well, I mean, it brings in your casual fan.
It does.
But our point of martial arts honorableness was solidified with the Dennis Bermudez Matt Grice fight. Afterwards, they're both very gracious to each other. All right. This fight's making me tired again when I watch it. Oh, this is a nice little afternoon nap. Heavyweights, Brendan Schaub, the hybrid, versus LeVar Big Johnson, i.e. LeVar No Wrestle Johnson.
LeVar no want to wrestle Johnson.
I was actually worried when they touched gloves that LeVar would go to or that LeVar Johnson would put Schaub to sleep. Like they touch gloves and they're butterflies.
This so was not the fight anyone was expecting.
Or wanting.
No, I mean everybody. I think Brendan Schaub wanted to see Brendan Schaub go to sleep from LeVar Johnson, but I don't know. I can't blame Brendan Schaub. The only way he could have won was to do what he did, and he did it so boringly. Nobody wins in that.
I can't blame him. I can and I will blame him. I knew his only way to do it was takedowns. I didn't realize that Schaub, who has rudimentary wrestling at best, would still be able to get LeVar Johnson down at will.
At will.
That was his only way to win. But here is why I'm mad at Brendan Schaub. He did no damage on the ground.
Nothing.
If you're going to get him down, and LeVar never tried to get up, at least throw an elbow, say mean things in his ear, just do something.
What was that with
anything.
LeVar? Why didn't he try to
75 stand-ups. LeVar's got no wrestling. He's got no hips. He's just a big monster that throws haymakers. He doesn't have a ground game of any kind.
No, and when he was in a super choke, he muscled his way out by just throwing lefts and got himself.
That was kind of cool.
That was
though.
Badass.
That was kind of alpha.
It was.
Choke me, eat this motherfucker. This is how we do shit in Harlem. Bam.
I love that shit.
I don't even know the guys from Harlem.
No, that's sort of
whatever.
racist. But I liked LeVar wanting to just stand and scrap. And I think Brendan Schaub said after the fight that LeVar was saying, "Come on, let's get up and give these guys a show." And he was just thinking, "I don't know. If I do that, I'm going to get knocked out." You know, like, again, that's
Brendan Schaub fought scared.
He's what?
He fought scared.
Well, you have to. Even Dana White, who said, that he hated the fight, said he totally understands why Brendan Schaub did what he did. And that's, it just brings us back to, they're making all these cuts. Well, Brendan Schaub knows he's got to win. What's to stop him from fighting boring? Dana
White also implied that he would never cut somebody off of a win, but there are certain fights that it makes him wish he could.
And that was this one. Brendan Schaub just, he won 30-27 on all the cards, but nobody wanted to see that.
Yeah, no. I was actually joking before the fight that instead of like a ring doctor, they were just keeping a ring mortician because I was so excited to see Brendan Schaub's head collapsed. Like maybe it would actually explode like scanners. No. First takedown he landed, I was like, well, there was the fight. I kind of threw my pin up in the air. I was taking notes. I'm like, whatever. I had nothing to write down now. Oh, Lord. Oh, well, that's part one. Clearly, the fight of the night, the fight of the prelims, fight of the year.
Thus far.
Dennis Bermudez versus Matt Grice. Any other fights from the prelims you want to just highlight really quick?
I was very impressed by the submission of the night by Kenny Robertson, and I am excited to see Bermudez and Grice fight their next fight. Yeah, and the Nashon Burell fight, Yuri Vilif fight had some drama in it. It had some back and forth. That was a pretty good one. Let's just see Nashon come in on at weight next time. Yeah. And then people are like, well, this is his first time coming down. Like, I can understand, okay, he misses it by half a pound. Or if this is his first time. He's actually missed weight before when he fought for Strikeforce, and he came 6 pounds overweight. You'd have to eat like 4 Big Macs to get that heavy. That's ridiculous. At some point, he's like, you know what, I'm not going to make it. I'm just going to come in at whatever I come in at. Right. Whoops. There's a certain type of, professionalism, and there was none exhibited there. Yeah. And then I think that cheapens his win. It does. Well, it literally. Yeah, 20%. I see what you did there. All right, that's part one. Join us for part two. It'll be up on YouTube, or there on MMAshare.com, or there on WhatCulture.com, where Mitchell is going to write an awesome John Fitch article. Ta-ding! Nice. All right, I'll see you guys for the next time.